Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the GioMoShow on 88.3 FM WXOU, Auburn Hills, Michigan, Oakland University, and all your wonderful station identification features. I'm your host, GioMoShow, your sports media director here at WXOU, and the GioMoShow is your home for all Oakland sports and beyond on 88.3 FM. Don't forget to follow WXOU on our MAB award-winning social media platforms, including Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. You can follow us at WXOU Radio or WXOU. And if you missed a live show, or hold on, I skipped a step here. Don't forget to follow me on social media as well. I am also on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you miss a live show, then you can find me at your own convenience on Spotify and on YouTube as well. The GioMoShow will be live at your convenience whenever you want to listen to it. I got updates for you as usual on Oakland University softball. This will be the last update of the year as the season has wrapped up. We got updates on baseball as well. Their season, the regular season, coming to an end real soon here as they look towards the Horizon League tournament. As well as some bonus content here. I got a little bit of talk on the NBA as well as USPBL baseball. I was about to say the whole acronym, but it would have twisted my tongue too much. But before we get started, let me tell you about Bart's Pizza. Bart Basilico reinvented his father's pizzeria business by putting it on wheels. I'm talking a pizza food truck, baby. Bart and his wife Lauren travel all around Metro Detroit, cooking up homemade pies made fresh to order in their 4-layered pizza oven on wheels. You can find them on their website at eatbartspizza.com and Facebook and Instagram at Bart's Pizza. And I'm not kidding when I tell you that pizza is some killer stuff. We saw Bart at opening day at Comerica Park, interviewed on Fox 2. He's been making quite a name for himself in the pizza game. And while you're at it, make sure to get a cannoli as well, as those things are to die for. Now let's move on to your Oakland University sports, starting with softball. The softball season has sadly concluded for the Golden Grizzlies in a tough battle with Northern Kentucky in a final championship game in the Horizon League tournament. Let me set the stage for you guys. In 2021, Oakland was the second seed but lost to UIC. In the championship game of the Horizon League tournament, UIC is no longer in the Horizon League. So this past year in 2022, they were the number one seed and won the regular season with a conference record of 18-7. This is 2022. In that 2022 tournament hosted by Youngstown State, Oakland was able to skip the first round as the number one seed got them a first round bye. In the second round, against the fifth seed Green Bay Phoenix, Oakland was able to win in a shutout 2-0 to advance to the third round. In that third round, they faced the sixth seed Northern Kentucky Norse. Oakland led for the entire game and won 3-1 to advance to the championship game in the winners bracket. In the final championship game, they faced Robert Morris. The Colonials had a tough battle getting to that championship game as they lost their first game to Green Bay in a tough one, 2-3. But they clawed their way back in the consolation bracket. They beat Youngstown State 4-2. They got revenge on Green Bay by beating them 7-1. They beat Cleveland State 5-2, and then they beat Northern Kentucky to get to the championship game and face the Golden Grizzlies. In that game, Robert Morris looked like they had the upper hand. They were up by 4 at the top of the fifth inning. Things were looking dire for Oakland. At the bottom of the fifth inning, Oakland was able to get a single home run to sort of cut into that lead and get them back into the game. They followed that up by holding Robert Morris to 0 points at the top of the sixth inning and then in the bottom of the sixth. Oakland, with the score now 4-2, had the last stand. In the bottom of the sixth inning, OU hit a triple that batted in 2 runners to tie the game 4-2. And then, for the game-winning run, Oakland hits a sacrifice fly to throw the final blow at Robert Morris and winning the Horizon League 5-4 and became champions in 2022, and all those girls got big, fat Horizon League championship rings on their finger for becoming champions finally in 2022. And now for this season, to 2023, they hit the ground running, didn't miss a beat, as they were once again top seed in the Horizon League, this time with a 14-7 conference record. In the 2023 tournament held in Green Bay, OU mercied their first opponent, the hosting Phoenix. Mercied them in the second round after the first round bye, beating them 10-2 in 6 innings. In the third round, OU took a loss to Northern Kentucky. This is not going to be the first, second, or third match against the Northern Kentucky Norse. They faced them 3 times in this tournament. They lost the first one 2-4 in extra innings, knocking them to the consolation bracket. In that consolation bracket, OU faced Youngstown State, who they shut out for a 2-0 win to stay alive and advance back to the championship game to face who else but the Northern Kentucky Norse. And because Oakland is in the consolation bracket, the rules are that you have to beat the winner of the winners bracket. You have to beat them twice in order to claim the championship for yourself. And as the winner of the winners bracket, Northern Kentucky only had to win once against Oakland University. In that game, the first game, to kind of spoil it a little bit, Northern Kentucky had the lead 1-0 after 2 innings. Then Oakland scored 2 runs at the top of the 5th inning to take the lead 2-1. Oakland then scored again to build on top of their lead to go up 4-1 at the top of the 7th inning. And Northern Kentucky had one last chance to strike back, but they were not able to get all the way there as they ended the inning and the game with just a single run. So Oakland was able to win the first game of the championship match 4-2, setting up a winner-take-all sudden death for all the marbles game against Northern Kentucky once again. This title bout was a defensive game. Oakland took an early lead in the bottom of the second, going up just 1-0. Northern Kentucky was later in the 4th inning able to tie the game at 1-1. And then the next one to score was Northern Kentucky. They scored again with a single run in the 5th inning, making the score now 2-1, and that's where the scoring ended. Oakland loses to Northern Kentucky 2-1 and is unable to repeat as Horizon League champions. And they were just about 1 to 2 runs away from doing so. It was a total heartbreaker in Green Bay. Unable to repeat as champions, which was a goal from the very start. They always say the hardest thing about winning a championship is winning it again. And they definitely proved that, and that was definitely proven for this season. But to zoom out a little bit at Oakland softball and what successes they have had in recent years, if you remember how I mentioned in 2021, 22, and 23, they were the second seed and the first seed for the following couple of years. So they've been in the top 2 for at least the past 3 years and have made it to the championship game in all of those years. So Oakland is nothing but a powerhouse in the Horizon League. And for this season, they only have one senior graduating from the team, so you're going to expect most of those Grizzlies to return for a redemption and to get another ring on their finger. Oakland's got a lot of young talent, a lot of freshmen contributing a lot to the team, and it's going to be a wild ride next season in 2024 for Oakland University softball, so I would definitely keep an eye out for that. Moving on to our next sport, that's going to be baseball. If you're tuning in to WXOU, 2:30 today was Oakland had a baseball game against Northern Kentucky in the last series of the regular season as they get ready to compete in the Horizon League tournament. That's going to be Wednesday at a determined location. Currently, Oakland stands 26-28 and 17-11 in conference, good for second in the Horizon League. And for this series against Northern Kentucky, they're only a game and a half behind them. They came into the series just half a game behind them at 15-11. Now, with the loss at Oakland today to kind of spoil the result for today's game, now they are sitting at 15-12. So basically, the winner of this series, whoever gets 2 wins out of the series, does claim the second spot in the Horizon League, the second seed in the tournament, which is also gifted a first-round bye. So that's going to be very important. A lot to play for in this series against Northern Kentucky. But let's back up a little bit. What happened last weekend? How did we get to this stage here? Well, last weekend was against Purdue Fort Wayne at their place at Fort Wayne, Indiana. Oakland was able to pull off the sweep against the Mastodons in fabulous fashion. Game 1 was a big win, 11-5, with 17 hits in total for the Grizzlies. Lucas Luz went 3 for 4 at bat with 3 RBIs in that game. Reagan Paulino was 3 for 4 with an RBI and a run. And Brandon Heidel was 2 for 3 with an RBI and a run. Game 2, same score, 11-5 towards Oakland with 12 hits in the game. Ian Cleary had a freaking monster game. 4 for 5 at bat, 4 RBIs, 2 runs. Gabe Lux went 2 for 5 with an RBI and 3 runs. And Lucas Luz, 2 for 4, 3 RBIs, and a run for that final score of 11-5. In Game 3 for the sweep, it was a little bit of a tighter one. Oakland still wins it 12-9. Reggie Bussey had a game. Went 2 of 3 with an RBI and 2 runs. Heidel, 1 for 3 with 3 RBIs. And Cleary, 1 for 5, but had an RBI and a run. So, in total, in this series, Oakland had 34 runs scored with 36 hits in those 3 games. Just a monster series against a Horizon League opponent to help them get to that second spot in the Horizon League. They followed that up with a trip to Ypsilanti to face the Eastern Michigan Eagles in what was a humbling experience for Oakland. You heard the game called live here on 88.3 FM WXOU. Me and Matt Wasilowski. Matt, who you also heard on today's broadcast and who you're going to be hearing again on the GioMoShow. We got a conversation that I'm going to be playing for you guys that we had, and it's going to be later uploaded to YouTube and Spotify, so get ready for that at about 6:30. But me and Matt were in Ypsilanti watching the Grizzlies and the Eagles go at it. Oakland actually had a lead in the game, was up 2-1 after the top of the second inning, but that's when the Eagles just lit up the Grizzlies. Had 6 runs in the bottom of the second, making the score now 6-2 in favor of the Eagles. Just unleash the Eagles. Oakland was able to respond with 3 runs at the top of the third, that following inning, to cut the lead down to just 1 with the score 5-6. Still EMU lead. But EMU was not done yet. Bottom of the third, another 4 runs by the Eagles. Scores now 10-5. Oakland cuts it to 10-7, but then later at the bottom of the 5th inning, EMU was not done. They piled on another 7 runs to make the score 17-7, and that was just too much for the Grizzlies to overcome. Grizzlies were able to score a single run to cut the lead to 9, making it 17-8, which ended up being the final score, to dodge the max mercy rule, which dictates that if a team is up by 10 past the 7th inning, then the game is over. But since Oakland was only down by 9, they continued till the 9th inning. So it was a tough experience for the Grizzlies. But I'll tell you what, from the broadcasting side, Eastern Michigan has a fabulous facility. O-Strike Stadium is a great place to play baseball. They got the PA going, and I'm a total sucker for good PA, sound effects, announcing, songs, all that kind of stuff. I'm a huge sucker for it. And Eastern Michigan had plenty of it, all the kinds of sound effects. They'd have glass crashing at foul balls. They have the seagulls going mine. Whenever there's a foul ball going into a crowd and people are looking for it. They got when there's a walk, when a batter is walked, they play Walk This Way by Aerosmith. They do all this kind of crazy stuff, and I'm just such a sucker for it. I couldn't stop talking about it on the broadcast. So, O-Strike Stadium, if you're in Ypsilanti, it's a fun time. And there was also a big visit by the EMU football team. They were all up in the crowd and adding a lot of energy to the atmosphere. But back to Grizzly baseball. They just started their last Horizon League series of the season against Northern Kentucky in a game that started off with a lot of fire but cooled down pretty quick. You just heard this game, like I was saying, at 2:30 here on WXOU. Harj and Matt on the call, me handling the studio. So for this game today, It started out with Northern Kentucky taking the lead in the top of the first inning, 1-0, before Oakland laid down 3 home runs in the bottom of the first. Heidel got one. Nye got one. Luz got one to go up 3-1 after the first inning, and it stayed that way up until the 8th inning, where Oakland added another score on top of that. Brandon Nye was able to bat in Gabe Lux to make the final score 4-1. Oakland now leading the series 1-0. If Oakland gets another win, either tomorrow or Saturday, then Oakland will lock in the second seed of the Horizon League. And like I mentioned, they get a bye week in the tournament. In Oakland, they were runner-up in the Horizon League tournament last year, so that bye week is going to be crucial for them to make a solid run to avenge themselves and get the Horizon League championship. So, moving on from your Oakland University baseball, that's all I got for the Oakland stuff. We got a little bit of NBA I want to talk about here. I know I'm not usually the NBA guy here, and there's a lot of other people that watch it religiously like I do Oakland sports. But I can't help but I wanted to talk about it. We got the playoffs going on. We got the draft lottery that just happened. I got a lot to talk about here. A lot of what to do with the Pistons, so I want to get into it. So for a little bit of an update on the playoffs, if you've been living under a rock a little bit, that's fine. I do too. The 76ers were knocked out of the playoffs by the Boston Celtics in a fashion that's all too familiar for Sixers fans. The Sixers were up 3-2 and played Game 6 in Philadelphia, but something was up, and they just came out completely flat. Boston forced a Game 7, played at the Garden, at the Boston Garden, and it was the end for the Sixers. Doc Rivers, the Sixers coach, actually got fired for this one, as he has now lost 10 Game 7s in his career, which is far and away the most in NBA history. Is it all his fault? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I would say it's a mix of both, as like a lot of things in sports. It's a mix of coaching and it's a mix of players. When you have the MVP, you're going to expect a little bit more out of him. When you have, for the Sixers, James Harden basically single-handedly won Game 1 and Game 4 to keep them in the series. And the MVP should be able to get you at least 2 wins, right? Isn't that the deal? So for the Sixers to underperform, once again, they got their coach fired for something that happened at his last job with the Clippers, something very similar. Then it's just a shame for Sixers fans, and I really wanted Boston knocked out. I don't like Boston that much. So that's what was going on the East Coast. That's how Boston got to the Eastern Conference Finals. Miami is who they faced in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they got there by beating the Knicks in 6 games. In Miami, bro, the 8th seed Miami Heat just refused to die. Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Kevin Love is making a huge impact on the game. Kyle Lowry is making himself known. You just got a lot of just refusal to lose on that team. And they're fantastic to watch. They got my fandom in this Eastern Conference Finals against the Celtics. We'll get to how Game 1 went in just a little bit. Just a little summary of it. On the West Coast, the Lakers were able to take out the Warriors in 6 games to advance to the Western Conference Finals. I, for one, am very happy about that because I did not want Golden State to keep staying in the finals. They became they're like the Patriots of the NBA, and I always root against teams that just win so much for it, just because I like the underdog story. I get real sick of teams that just win over and over again, and I'm just not a huge fan of the Warriors or Steph or Draymond. I'm not totally into it. So, and I'm more on the side of watching LeBron continue his legacy, just kind of pile on his historic career. You see Anthony Davis becoming what he should be for most of the season, which is an absolute freak of nature on offense and defense. So you get to see him a little bit. I love the story of the Lakers with Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura. I can't remember the first name, but Walker. They're doing a great job. They're contributing a lot and really giving the team some depth. So I'm a Lakers fan temporarily, just because we'll get into it a little bit, but Pistons ain't in this thing. They couldn't be farther away from it. But I like the story of the Lakers. And who do they get to face in the Western Conference Finals? That's going to be the Denver Nuggets, another team that just utterly fascinates me. As the number one seed in the Western Conference, they were able to take out the Phoenix Suns in what was also a very familiar loss. Like I was saying with the 76ers, it's a familiar situation, familiar loss. Phoenix, they look familiar as well. So what happened? So to kind of zoom out, last year against the Dallas Mavericks, the Suns, who were the number one seed in the West, were in an elimination game. I believe it was Game 7 against Luka Doncic and the Mavericks at home, and they were down by 30 points at halftime. It was like embarrassing, an embarrassing way to lose. So that's basically exactly what happened against the Nuggets this year. The same thing happened, down by about 30 points at halftime against the Nuggets, and it was so bad and so embarrassing that they fired the one of the recent coaches of the year, Monty Williams. He's now on the market because it was just such a bad loss, and you know people are saying that he's losing his grip on the team. They're not listening to him. He's not getting through to them, and this and that. So Monty Williams is now on the market, and I have no idea what's going on with what's going to happen with the Phoenix Suns, especially after they've invested so much in Kevin Durant, losing basically all of their depth. And you got your issues with DeAndre Ayton. You got Chris Paul not existing half the time, and it's just a lot. A very, very top heavy team that has the legs swept out from underneath them, has the legs kicked out from underneath them. So that gives us the conference finals matchups that we have: Boston and Miami in the East, and Los Angeles and Denver in the West. And if you've been watching basketball for a little bit, you'll notice that is the exact same conference finals matchups as the bubble in the 2020 season, where they played in the ESPN worldwide world of sports, whatever sports complex that they have in Disney World. It's the same matchup. And, are we going to see a repeat? Are we going to see the Lakers versus Miami again? Is Miami going to get revenge as the 8th seed and really make a statement, especially for Jimmy Butler and his fantastic NBA playoffs career? Are we going to see that? Are we going to see Jokic get a chance at his first ring after winning 2 MVPs? It should have been 3. At least in hindsight, it should have been 3. Are we going to see Boston avenge their loss in the conference in the NBA Finals against the Warriors? Are we going to see that? So for me, this is a really I like this matchup. I would have preferred the Sixers just because I'm not a huge fan of Boston. I like things being shaken up a little bit. I would like to see the MVP actually make a conference finals, which Joel Embiid is the first to not do that. And I'm pretty excited for these playoffs. I'm going to try my best to stay up late and watch the Western games as they are played so late at night, and it's just so frustrating for me because I want to watch it, but they end at 12:30, and man, I'm busy. But very excited for these conference finals, and we already got some game ones on them for Miami and Boston. Miami is able to steal game 1 on the road, and I say steal as in they won on the road, not necessarily that they came up from underneath and stole it from them. No, Boston just doesn't play good at home for some reason in the playoffs. This is the second series in a row this playoffs that they have lost game 1 at home. They did it against basically just James Harden in the semifinals, and now it happened against the Heat in the conference finals. And that game was the final score 123-116 in favor of Miami. And it just shows that the Heat refuse to die. That's just how it is. They won't stop unless Jimmy Butler says so. And he has fantastic play in the playoffs all the time. It's insane what he is able to do. Moving on to the West Coast side, Nuggets were able to beat LA 132-126 in a game that was just a blowout until a little bit later in the fourth quarter. Lakers were able to cut it down a little bit, and the story from that game is that, yes, the Nuggets won, but the Lakers are starting to figure things out. You're hearing talks about a moral victory. They had Rui Hachimura participating on defense against Jokic. Kind of slowed him down a little bit after he had 3 quarters of just tearing it up. But, that's a matchup that's going to be very interesting to watch. I don't think it's lopsided one way or the other. And I think that's just going to be a fantastic one to watch. So just watching Jokic is just mesmerizing. It's hypnotic what he's able to do. At his size and his build and all the skills he has passing and scoring, and it's masterful. I love watching it. I just wish they weren't on so late. So that's your little summary of the NBA playoffs. Let's get into a little bit of complaining about the draft lottery. So Pistons got screwed, if you haven't heard, if you still live under a rock, which, relatable. The Pistons got screwed out of the number 1 pick, or even the top 3 pick, and even the top 4 pick. With the worst record in the league, the Pistons got the 5th pick out of the draft lottery. Complete insanity. That is what was drawn. The Spurs are the one who won the number 1 pick and got Victor Wembanyama, which it's foretold that they're going to get him. A team that already has 5 championships, that has had multiple high draft picks and fantastic players that are there for years. David Robinson, Tim Duncan, and I'm not specifically sure when they were drafted, but like you got this super successful historic franchise, and of course they get Victor Wembanyama, not the team that's been drowning since like 2005 or something, right? I wasn't even conscious when the Pistons were good, which completely sucks. And we'll get into that a little. We'll get that. I guess right now we'll get into it. It's like I've never seen the Pistons be good. Ever since I've mentioned it before, I haven't really gotten into the NBA until just about the bubble. Just because, we're sitting at home and I'm watching the bubble finals and I'm kind of learning more and more about it. I knew the Pistons were kind of in the playoffs in like 18, 19, but they just kind of first round exits and even win a game kind of deal. So I wasn't super into it, but it's tough, man. I want to watch basketball. I would watch so much more NBA if the Pistons were any good and watchable, and that would be more basketball coverage for you in the JoMo show here. So it's hurting you in 2 ways, at least. But it's not, it sucks. It completely sucks, and you just want, and all you want to do is complain all day about it. I don't blame you, but it's not all doom and gloom. I would say you got, you got Cade, you got Ivy, you got Duran. You at least have a solid 3 of super young players that you could build around. But, without Wembanyama, it's going to be a little bit harder to find a coach. Drafting a number 5 is going to be hard. And there's just a lot that's got to be done for the Pistons to dig themselves out of this hole. But, here's to them trying, right? Here's to them trying. So real quick, we were running a little bit short on time, at least for my sports update segment, as we're going to be listening to a fantastic conversation between me and my lovely, sometimes co-host, Matt Wesolowski. You've heard him on a lot of WXOU broadcasts covering basketball, covering baseball and softball with us. He works for the Saginaw Spirit, and he's the nicest dude you've ever met, and always positive, just about the biggest hockey guy I know. So we talk about that a little bit during the interview, how he's got his start, a lot about minor league hockey, where he's got a sports background. So we're going to be listening to that after this short message from 88.3 FM WXOU. We'll be right back here on the JoMo Show with your fantastic conversation.